Hello and welcome back to another video tutorial of this Robot Framework mobile automation course. Today we are going to talk about beginning your automation project and about launching your application on your mobile device or on your emulator using Robot Framework and Appium. I know this is a video you have been all waiting for, so let's get started and let's create the necessary steps in order to start our application for the first time. Okay, what I have here is an Android 9 emulator that was created exactly the way I showed you in the last video. So from Android Studio, I went to AVD Manager, and here I created an Android 9 emulator with Google Play because the application I'm going to use for automating the test cases will be downloaded from Google Play. And there is nothing changed about this emulator. Every setting is the default setting, and all I did was to give it the option to cold boot, so it won't save the emulator state every time the emulator is closed. Okay, so I have this emulator started here and I have my Google account already configured inside Google Play. And the application we are going to automate, it's called Chat21. I wanted to automate a chat application because it offers the possibility to use two or multiple devices in the same time. So on the long term, we will be able to create an automation project between two or more devices that will actually talk to each other, let's say. So this is the interface of the application. We are going to create conversations between two users. We are going to send messages and we are going to read and receive them. All right, let's go back. Let's install this application, and we are also going to install another application that is called 𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗍. And the reason why I'm doing this is because in order to start an application on your mobile device using Appium, you have to declare two very important things. The first one is the application package, and the other one is the application launch activity. So every application out there has a package and a launch activity, and the both of them combined will give you the startup of your application. All right, I will simply go to Google and I will say AppiumLibrary, and I will choose this link on GitHub, and I will open keyword documentation. If you remember from the last videos, when we actually talked about keywords inside libraries and user-defined keywords and all of that, I stated that all the libraries already have predefined keywords that you can use in order to start your application, your browser, and much more. In this case, because we are going to use Robot Framework AppiumLibrary, we are going to try to open the application on the mobile device using one of the already defined keywords, and that is the open application keyword. If we look inside the list, we can see that this keyword is right about here. So In order to call for this application and in order to open up the application on the mobile device, we have an example here of arguments we can use. So we are going to take this example and we are going to use it in our test case. Let me first show you how you can detect the application package, and then we will see how to detect the application activity. There are two ways of detecting your application package. The first one is by using UI Automator Viewer as your default inspector for Appium and for Android elements. And the second one is to use the 𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗆 app that we just downloaded. For the first example, I am not going to touch the locators part of the application. In this video, all we are going to do is simply to start the application and see if that works. And then in a future video, I will teach you how to properly get your elements of the interface, how you can write them as IDs and XPath and all that, and how you can interact with your elements in order to do the basic functions such as input text, click buttons, and so on. We have the 𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗆 application installed. I'm going to open it, and from the list of installed applications, you can choose the application we just installed for our automation project. So that is the 𝗵𝗵𝗀 application, and the application package is the one that is written right underneath the name of the application. So that's what I'm going to use for this first open of the application. Let me just go into PyCharm. I'm going to go into PyCharm, and I'm going to create a new project. So I will call this Android project. I will show you again the steps to properly configure your project and your environment in case you missed the videos from the other playlist. So I will make sure I have a Python interpreter for this project. You can use a virtual environment if you like to. I personally prefer to use the system interpreter, so that in my case is Python 3.8. And I will choose create. I will choose this window. Okay. Now I'm going to go to settings, languages and frameworks, robot options. I will modify the setting for IntelliBot for the depth of searching keywords into libraries to 5. That is more than enough. I will choose this capitalize keywords option, so my keywords are written smoothly and with a capital letter for each word. And then I'm going to choose apply. Then I'm going to create the usual 3 of folders in order to start my project. So I will have a tests folder. I will have a resources folder. I will have an output folder. And for the cases where I need to upload documents into my automated test or things like that, I will have a data folder. We don't need this main. Let's create our first test case. We will call it test case. Let's call it open underscore application dot robot. So this is the first file I created inside my newly created project, and this test, all this test is going to do is to open up the application on my mobile device. Alright, so we will have the settings section, and inside the settings section we will declare the Appium library. This way we know that we can use all the commands that we saw earlier declared in the documentation, in the keyword documentation page. Also, if you hold down Control and you hover over the name of the library, if this gives you suggestions, then you know that the library is correctly installed and you can use it to launch your application. Then we are going to declare the test cases section, and we are going to call this first test case open underscore application. Alright, now we are going to write down the line that is actually going to launch the application on our Android emulator. So we said that we are going to use this command. This is the open application command. So we are going to say open application. And then we have a series of arguments that are that we are going to give to our keyword in order to correctly start the application on the mobile device. The first argument is the URL for the Appium instance. I'm just going to copy paste it as it is, and I'm going to explain it. So when you start an Appium instance using the terminal or the command prompt in our case, this is going to start up on local port. So the idea is that when you want to automate using Appium, you are going to need one Appium instance for every device or every emulator you are going to use. By default, the Appium instance will start on port 4723. We are going to open up a terminal, and I'm simply going to say Appium. And you will see that by default, the Appium instance will start on port 47.3. 23, sorry. If you want to start Appium on a different port, all you have to do is type in Appium -- port and give it another port, let's say 4725. And now the Appium instance will start on this port. For the first example, I am not going to change the port, so this is the Appium link that the test will use in order to interact with the mobile device. So this is the first argument. Then let's see what else we have here. We have platform name Android. I am going to also use that because we are automating on Android. We are going to platform version. I'm not interested at this point, but we will use that in the future. Device name, I can use this also. So if we open up another terminal and type in ADB devices, we have a device that is not authorized. The kill server, ADB start server, and usually I should get a confirmation pop-up on the no. Alright, I am back with the tutorial, it seemed that at one point I had an error with my previous emulator due to the fact that I changed the location of my emulators from the C partition to the D partition, and some files got into conflict, and because of that my emulators weren't exactly working properly. So now what I did was to go into Android Studio, and I actually deleted all the old emulators and I created a freshly Android 9 emulator on the new location. And now if I open up a terminal and I type in 𝗸𝗵𝗍devices, so there you have it, the device is properly displayed because it was created in the new location. So we will continue with the starting of the application. So I was telling you that you need to open apk-info, open the 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀 application inside it, and we have all the details we need. For the device name, if we type in 𝗸𝗵devices, we can get this name from the terminal and we can type it in here. Also, now we have to type in the two required arguments, that is application package and application activity. These are the main things we need in order to start our application on the mobile device. If we look on the application package, we can get it directly from the apk-info interface, so that is 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀android.demo. So that is exactly what I'm going to type in here. So 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀android.demo, 2 spaces at least, and the last argument, it's going to be the application activity. If we scroll down inside the apk-info tab, we can see that we have a menu called activities, and here we have all kinds of activities that are used inside the application. Some activities can be called for directly, some cannot, but the idea for us is to be able to start the application and then we will navigate throughout the menus and tabs and all that using Appium. This is not something that is straightforward, but in most cases you will find your start activity in the first 3 or 4. So in this case, I'm going to long press on this one and it will be copied to clipboard. So for the launch activity, we are going to use this one, 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀demo.splash_activity. I'm going to type that in here. And one last argument I'm going to pass is an argument called automation name, and this will be equal to 𝑢𝑖_automator2. So this is the step where I specify the WebDriver that Appium should use in order to start my application. This is the first test case. If everything goes well, we will see the application starting on our mobile device, and we will consider that our first test case has been created. Before we can start this test case, we are actually going to start an Appium instance. We will double check that the port is 4723. We have the same port in here, and from the PyCharm console we are going to type in robot-d output. So I want to put the log inside the output directory, and then we will say --log level trace in order to see all the details of my execution, and then we are going to choose the destination of the automated test. All right. Let's minimize this a bit. I will minimize the PyCharm window, and I will let you see the emulators while this is being executed. So first of all, Appium should install the necessary files on the emulator, and then it should open up the application that we declared with application package and application activity. One thing that happens under Windows is that sometimes the terminal gets stuck with the Appium. I don't know exactly why, but one hit of the enter key should work and should give you this beautiful result, that is the launch of the application. And you can see right here that the application was correctly launched. Appium installed its application called Appium settings, and these are the logs inside the application. We will get into more detail about reading and understanding these logs later along the way. But if we open up PyCharm, you can see that now we have the first successful test in which we opened up our application. Let's open up the log. So we have the test application, and then we have the open application keyword with all these arguments, and it took about 30 seconds from the beginning of the test to the actual opening of the application. If we want to see how long it took for the application to open, it was 30 seconds, because in this time Appium also installed the necessary prerequisites. Let me just run the same test again. Now we are seeing live the logs. Okay, so this time, because Appium did not need to configure our emulator, the execution was much faster. And if I refresh this tab, it only took 7 seconds to open up the application. Thank you for watching this video on starting the application with Appium and Robot Framework on a mobile device. We will go further, and in the next video I'm going to show you how you can interact with the elements of your interface, how to get your locators as XPaths or IDs or whatever you like. And then we will actually start to create real test cases in which we are going to log in with the user, create discussion, and we are going to do much more. I'm feeling confident that you are going to love this series, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye bye.